Howdy folks, I figured I would talk to you about something that I made to get some power from the sun, and that would be a solar generator. We'll just take a quick look at it. You might recognize a few of the components. What I have constructed here is basically a wooden box, and it houses a battery which stores a solar charge, which comes in here through these XT60 connectors through a breaker into a solar charge controller, which then charges the battery, and you can use DC fuse protected power off of that battery, and you can also use AC power off of that battery. And I have 3D printed installed some switches for lighting here, which is good for nighttime use. And so you have DC, you have AC, and you have lights. And all I need to do to charge this setup is plug in a 100 watt 12 volt solar panel here with this cable. You can see I plugged this in here, and I plugged that into the solar panel there, and I charge that battery. And later on you can tell that I have space for another battery here, so that will basically double my capacity. What I have in there now is a 35 amp hour battery, and I can only use about half that 35 amp hours without damaging the battery. So this is basically a 17 amp hour system, which gives me, you know, only a certain amount of power here. But what I can do, I can run the inverter for about 3 hours or so, or I can charge some drone batteries. Here's my 12 volt charge lead. And we get these love bugs here in Florida. They fly around connected everywhere. It's kind of weird. It is love bug season. They look like they're about to get zapped in a USB port. Anyway, this is my first solar project ever, and it's very small, self-contained. I built it out of wood. I used some plywood from Home Depot and a wooden dowel from Ace Hardware. There's some foam fender washers and some little spring clips here. These are like for tractors and things like that. So you can pull the handle out to add batteries or remove batteries if you want, or you could just leave this here for carrying the cable for the whole system. And all I have to do is plug a 12 volt 100 watt panel into this, and it takes about 3.5 hours to charge it, and I can charge phones and use lights for about 2 or 3 days off of this thing. So one 3.5 hour 4 hour charge in full sunlight will give me about 2 or 3 days worth of lighting and charged phones. Whatever, I don't know, if you were out in the middle of nowhere and you can't charge your phone and you have to run gasoline in your truck to get USB to charge your phone, or whatever you got to do, I don't know, this is a pretty good alternative. The charge controllers are fairly cheap, and the inverters, this is an old inverter. It's not a pure sine wave inverter, but it works fine. The battery was about $109. This whole thing with a solar panel can be about $400, $500 with lights and these fancy clips and nice handle and everything the way I have it configured here. And it's fully portable. I can leave it in my car, or I can take it wherever I want, and it is a generator. It puts out 120 volts, puts out 12 volts, and it puts out everything I need to put it out. About these breakers, they're a little bit kind of high power or overkill for this project, I would say, but this is something I learned how to use when I built a lot of panels, is DIN rail components, and I believe they make things nice and clean. All my cables are so short, so I can get away with such thin cable, and I think I'm going to put another battery in here, and I will be able to double my charge capacity, which means I'll double my power storage. It'll be a 35 amp unit. It'll probably take twice as much time to charge, but I'll be able to use it for twice as long. So far so good. I charge it outside, so I don't have to worry about AGM gassing. When I use it inside, usually at nighttime. I do not know what else to say about it. This light, it kind of draws about 0.4 amps. I got it on eBay. It was originally about this long. It used to draw 1 amp, but I cut it in half and I chopped the circuit board with some scissors, and now it draws less current, less power, and produces less light. It sits right there on the side. I got the switch for about $5 from Ace Hardware. I 3D printed the switch mount. It took me about 20 minutes to draw up that mount and 3D print it, which is the beauty of 3D printing. You can see my Renogy Wanderer charge controller is working fine. The battery is sitting at 12.7 volts, which means it needs to be charged. You can see the other various modes of operation. I have this little fuse box here. If a fuse blows, one of the lights will light up. I have some things connected here. That is, this is the light, fuse for the light. This is the fuse for the drone charger. Got a bug on me. And I have 4 more ports there for DC output power. This is a ground strip. Very simple, guys. Spent maybe $300-400 on this project, and it turned out to be a lot more useful than I ever thought it would be. Very cool portable power to just throw in your truck or your RV. Of course, it is not charging my house battery, but we're going to get to that later. So, simple RV or truck or van life solar generator system. Peace out. Okay, so you can see I have a Renogy polycrystalline solar panel hooked up to this bad boy. My solar generator is what being this bad boy is. We're just gonna let it soak up some juice from the Florida sun here and observe some input settings. You can see my Renogy Wanderer charge controller is working. I'm getting 4.7 amps at 13 volts. 13.4 volts. Give it a couple hours like this and this thing will be charged, and I could use it for 2 or 3 days, depending on what I use. 2 or 3 days DC and a couple hours AC. But it's pretty cool to have a little spot generator like that. Only a couple $100. I like to leave it out of the sun just so it don't get messed up. Couple hours like that, it'll be fully charged. I need to get the second battery that I built it for so that it takes a little longer to charge and of course a little longer to drain. But man, I tell you what, it works pretty good. Give it a couple hours, that thing will be charged. Drawn 4.8 amps now off the panel. Or I'm gaining. Doing good. Peace. Alright folks, one thing I'm forgetting to tell you about these little solar generators is that if you're using these small charge controllers, you need to make sure you know how many amps. See, I'm putting out 5.3 amps into this battery right now. And max charging current is at 7 amps. You can see that right here. Max charging current 7 amps. Max charging voltage 14.7 volts. I charge it, you know, roughly about 14 volts, and I have about 5 amps. It's kind of, you know, when you're using wattage, it kind of equalizes out almost. Not exactly, but you don't want to go and put 200 watts worth of solar panels. You can see my panels laying on the bucket right there. You don't want to go ahead and put 200 watts into there, that would be a bad idea, because what's going to happen is your charge amperage is going to increase on this single battery. You're going to go higher than the max charging current. See, I'm only charging it at max 5 amps now. It's only a 20 maximum 20 volt panel at 5 amps, so that's 100 watts. 20 volts at 5 amps is 100 watts. So the max you're going to get off my panel is 5 volts, 5 amps, excuse me. So you're not going to hit the max charging current on this battery. You need to make sure that if I went and added another panel, which this can handle according to the specifications posted on it here, what would happen is I would end up charging at this battery that at higher than 7 amps, and it's going to cook this battery, and you don't want to do that. You need to be careful and make sure that you're not charging your batteries at a higher amperage rate than they were designed to be charged, and I am not doing that here. I would like to very carefully point that out because that's very important. So the max charge I hit here is about 5 amps or whatever. There's clouds going by. I'm at 3.6 amps now, 3.2 amps. I get about 5.5 amps max out of that panel, and it'll take like 3 or 2 hours to charge 17 amp hours, like that, 3 hours or whatever. But I'm never going over the max charging current of 7 amps an hour. The max I hit is like 5.4 or whatever, something like that. So I needed to point that out. You guys need to be safe, and you need to make sure that you don't charge your batteries at higher currents than they were designed to be charged at. This is one thing that I think some of the other DIY solar power people on YouTube forget to leave out. So I figured I would mention that. Be careful. You better read the directions and know what you're doing before you do it, because you can light things on fire. So be careful. Peace.